I'm Carol Cohn, and welcome to Purpose 360, the podcast that unlocks the power of purpose to ignite business and social impact. Today's conversation is about an amazing impact that a little pair of socks has made on hundreds of thousands of lives of homeless individuals in the United States. I have the honor and the joy of having an amazing conversation with Dave Heath, who's one of the co-founder of Bombas, because socks are the number one most requested clothing item at homeless shelters in the United States. The company started out that for every pair of Bombas purchased, a pair is donated to someone in need. It's the reason the company has started, and its unwavering motivation to keep designing and producing better socks and now t-shirts and underwear. The company was founded almost 10 years ago in its headquarters in New York. It now has sales over $300 million. It has donated more than 75 million items, and it has a profound impact through its 3,500 giving partner network to impact homelessness in so many ways, whether it's working with shelters that address veterans or youth or LGBTQIA or families. But then they also took those great design elements and even went further for the use in homeless individuals, so that the socks are dark, so they don't show the stains as much. They have even some stronger seams because homeless often are walking 5 or 10 miles a day. They don't have transportation. They don't have a place to sleep in many cases. This conversation has so many insights for social entrepreneurs that want to create a company based on a true need. And it also shows Dave's mind about staying focused and not pulling beyond what he can truly have an impact on. So I love this conversation. It's a story about a company and a team. It's about the love that socks has made individuals, which are so invisible in our country, more visible, and adding a modicum of confidence to them so that they can evolve their lives. Join us for this conversation with Dave Heath. First, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
And also, this is really special because Bombas was founded in 2013. And so the company has a very exciting anniversary coming up next year. So we're going to get to that near the end. But let's just start with the beginning. So can you talk about you had this eureka moment where you put, great connection maker. That's one of the things I do. And so just share with our listeners, what was that moment? What was the genesis of this amazing company?
It goes back a little bit, I'd say almost kind of to my childhood, where I grew up in a household of entrepreneurship. I got to watch my dad start a business in the basement of our house, the old-fashioned way, pre-venture funding and all this stuff, to get $5,000. And, over the course of my childhood into my teens and 20s, I watched him build, a business kind of brick by brick. Combination, I guess, of maybe genetics and osmosis. I, wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I went to school at Babson for entrepreneurship, kind of always knowing that my eyes and heart were set on starting my own business one day. I had small businesses like dog walking and bar washing and a DJ business in high school. So it was always kind of, something I wanted to do. And so graduating from Babson with kind of the skills that they had given me, I always had my eyes and ears open for problems to solve in the world through the lens of business. Prior to Bombas, I think I'd written something like 45 business plans. I'd started 3 other companies at much smaller scale. The interesting thing about Bombas and the story that where it starts is it didn't immediately hit me that there was a business opportunity here. So February 2011, I was scrolling on Facebook and I came across a post from the Salvation Army that said socks are the number 1 most requested clothing item in homeless shelters. And I remember sitting there thinking, wow, that's pretty sad. Here's an item of clothing that I've never spent more than a few seconds a day thinking about. And yet it's perceived as a luxury item for over 600,000 people living here in the US and even more globally. I just remember it kind of sticking with me. And I remember telling Randy, who's one of my co-founders who I was working with at the time, this fact. And I kind of saw a similar reaction on his face and eventually kind of wanted to do something about it. And so, on a much smaller scale, we both started carrying socks around with us, living in New York City and handing socks out to people on the street experiencing homelessness. And that even more so validated the need, right? I had these individual experiences where I'd walk up to people who I'd never, I was never, like most New Yorkers, I was never willingly engaging with people in the homeless community. And here I was saying, hey, I don't have any money, but I've got a pair of socks. Do you want it? And every time the reaction was like, I pulled out $100 bill and gave it to them. They were like, how did you know? This is exactly what I needed. I remember one instance specifically, and this image is so burned into my mind, and it was such a, I think, formative and catalytic moment for me. I saw a man take off his boots, and on one foot, he had wrapped a bandana around his foot as a makeshift sock. And on the other foot, he put a grocery plastic bag around his foot. And I was like, wow, I'm living in New York City and this person's using a plastic bag for a sock. And so, I started thinking, okay, well, how can we solve this problem at scale? Because me running around New York City handing out a few pairs a day is not really going to make a huge impact. And so at the same time, I was obviously continuing to follow entrepreneurship and kind of business success. And Tom Shoes, who kind of pioneered the buy one, give one model, was doing incredibly well. I think they were in their 5th year of business, donated hundreds of thousands of pairs, hundreds of millions of dollars. And I thought, wow, maybe that's an interesting model to kind of help solve this problem, is create a sock company that donates a pair for every pair that we sell. And that was kind of the, inspiration.
First of all, when you tell that story, it's so personal. And I think that's one of the great foundational elements to be an entrepreneur. And I love your background. I'm a 3rd-generation entrepreneur. So I do what I do with connection making. And then Tom's at the time, they were purpose company. I mean, everybody was going, oh my, it was kind of like when the Body Shop, launched, 2 decades earlier. Everybody would talk about Anita Roddick. And Tom's was everywhere, like, oh my God, look at these shoes. Because their shoes weren't exactly like the most attractive, kind of like Rockport in the early days. But it had such an amazing real story. So you and Randy, you're talking about this. But what was that moment where you and Randy said, we're going to do it?
We very quickly early on realized that we would want to maybe start something together. And so we had already kind of built up the muscle memory, as it were, to, when we see a problem, should we put it through the lens of, is there a business opportunity here? And so, we heard this idea in the beginning of 2011. We started ruminating on it. We started saying, okay, if we want to have real impact, we want to donate a lot of socks, well, we'll need to sell a lot. And if we're going to sell a lot, we'd have to create something that, is either the best product in the marketplace or something that feels differentiated from anything else that is out there. In the following kind of, year and a half, leading up to the launch in 2013, we went to the stores and tried every pair of socks on and tried to understand what separates a, low cost commodity product like, Hanes for the Loom, less than $1 a pair, from a pair of smart wool, hiking socks that are $32. We tried to understand what the difference was. And as we started to kind of go through the development process, we realized that there was actually a tremendous amount of technology and innovation happening in the premium athletic side of the sock market that was never making its way to the mass market side of the consumer products. And so our process was, okay, why is that? And, these products, even though they're designed for athletes and marathon runners and hikers and skiers, have features that actually make everyday comfort, that much better. So that was kind of our product thesis, was take the technology and innovation found in high performance athletic socks and bring them, to a package and design that felt approachable for, a very broad mass market type of consumer. And so we worked on that and iterated the product for over a year and a half. And we were still working our day jobs at the time, kind of all moonlighting this process. And then we found ourselves, we said, okay, we have this mission that we know there's a need for. We have this product that we think is really great. We've given it to our friends and family. They think it's really great. We've handed it out to strangers at the gym and, on airplanes, and people that we, would just meet along the way. And they would all tell us it's great. So, we had this, validation moment where we're like, okay, like here we are, let's go and do this. And again, you think back, 2013, there weren't a lot of direct-to-consumer brands, that were selling direct through their own websites at that time. So we didn't have a ton of proof points to say, okay, this is, how we should do it. But we came out of the digital world, kind of, a media company that we worked at before. And so, and Randy's an incredible storyteller. And, one of our other co-founders, Aaron, is a great creative. And so our skill sets have lended ourselves to say, okay, let's go do this online. We think this is the future. And, socks as a category, it's just a small product. It hangs on a shelf. In the retail environment, it's a low cost item. So it doesn't afford the ability to tell deep, enriched stories the way that the internet does. And that kind of leads to some of the videos and stuff that we did. But we thought, okay, the hypothesis was, we got this great mission, we've got this great product. If we can find a platform by which we can tell the world about, the impact of this product as well as the benefits of this product, maybe that will lead to some success. And so we launched on Indiegogo in August of 2013.
And you had a very interesting response because you weren't expecting a lot. What was your response in Indiegogo?
Yeah, I mean, when I think it's also important to note that, when we decided to move forward with Bombas as a project, I don't think any of us had delusions of grandeur. I think we were like, this seems fun. It seems interesting. Maybe we can have some impact in the community, but, how big can a sock company really be? So we went out with very low expectations. We were trying to, raise $15,000 in order to place the first production run. And so we said, okay, Indiegogo is an interesting place, right? We didn't raise any money from friends and family. We wanted to bootstrap this thing. And so we said Indiegogo crowdfunding seems like an interesting way to tell our story and gauge whether people care about this. And so we put the site live in August of 2013, and we did over $24,000 in our first day. And we went on to do over $150,000 in the month that we ran the campaign. So by the end of the campaign, we were like, oh my God. This is far more successful and interesting than I think we had thought it was. Maybe we're really hitting a nerve on the mission and a need on the product side. And so we took some of that money, placed the production run, built a website, and launched the website in October of 2013. And I think our next level of hypothesis was, okay, let's ship the product out to our customers, see what they think, and organically, do they come back and rebuy the product? Do they give us positive feedback? Do they tell their friends about it? And following October, once we set the site launch, we continued to average about $100,000 in sales every month. through kind of the beginning of 2014.
So let's take a step back, because I think our listeners, I mean, I hope everybody knows you, but if they don't, can you just talk a little bit about your name? And then also just how it works, because I love the fact it's you make commitments like within 12 months, I will make sure this, there will be a product. If you bought 1 or 10 or whatever, it's going to go out into our network. Explain simply how it works, but also the name, because it's about bees and hives.
Bombas is derived from the Latin word for bumblebee. And the reason that we ended up landing on this is because bees are naturally altruistic animals. They work together as a hive, as a community, and no one bee kind of goes off and does their own thing, right? They work as a collective. And bees are also small, but they have a massive impact on the world. And we liked the kind of correlation between the idea that socks are small, but to somebody experiencing homelessness, that could maybe have a big impact on their comfort, on their dignity, on their daily life. And what we've learned, in the almost 10 years that we've been doing this, is that we've actually heard of stories where people have interacted with Bombas as a brand, and it's been a catalyst, for them to feel seen and then turn around and want to go, do something more with their lives. Or in aggregate of the, over 75 million items we've donated, we've heard from giving partners who have been able to save enough money to send kids in their community to college, or, buy, needed items, or provide, services to their community because they don't have to go out and purchase these products. And so that goes back to the model, right? Which is, most people don't understand that you can't donate used socks for hygiene reasons. And socks are typically a wear-through item. So, you and I will wear them until they get a hole, and then they go in the garbage. So it not only becomes the most needed item because people who are experiencing homelessness, right, they're typically walking everywhere. They're afraid to take their shoes off at night because they don't want someone to steal them. So all of this leads to major foot issues, especially if you don't have the correct pair of socks. And for any of us that have, visited a city and packed the wrong pair of shoes, or not wearing the right type of socks, you develop a blister, and, it can really ruin your day. Now these people, that's their main mode of transportation. So you imagine kind of foot hygiene becomes incredibly important. And so, homeless shelters are required basically to use budget to go out and buy new socks, and typically underwear as well, to then go out and donate these products. So the beauty of our business model is that we were solving a very specific need in the homeless community and for our giving partners. And when I talk about our giving partners, when we started the company, we didn't know how to donate socks other than hand them out, in the street, but we didn't know how to donate them at scale. So I literally typed into Google, I said, stock, donation charities.
Right.
And I found this one charity in Cleveland, Ohio called Hannah Socks. And I called them and I said, can you talk to me about how this works? What do you do? And they said, well, we're a distribution hub. We get socks from all over the country. And then we support, a network of giving partners from people around the country. And so they were kind of our first partner. And they also really helped us understand, the product needs of the homeless community. I think one of the questions that people also wonder is, do we donate the same product that we sell? And for the first 6 months of the business, we were donating the exact same product that we were shipping to customers, because it was really important to us that we don't further perpetuate that, the notion that they're second class, that they deserve less product, right? So we wanted to give them the same joy and comfort that our paying customers were experiencing by giving them the same product. And it wasn't until speaking with our charity partners that we realized that maybe the product that we were producing for our paying customers wasn't optimized for someone experiencing street homelessness. So we did 6 months of R&D to find out, okay, let's use darker colors to show less visible wear. Let's reinforce the seams to provide greater durability. And let's use an antimicrobial treatment to help prevent the growth of fungus and antibacterial issues that, again, if you're not changing your socks every day or having access to a washing machine, and all of a sudden it becomes incredibly important. And so we developed our donation sock product. And I think it's important because this was kind of the first moment in the start of the company where we said, we have two sets of customers, right? We have our paying customer, and then we have our non-paying customer in the homeless community. And for us, it was really important to think about our non-paying customer as a customer, right? And develop product through the lens of somebody, that we are in business to serve.
You might be the only or the first company that actually looked at the homeless market as a true customer. And whether you're making money, you're not making money, but you are supporting them. You're being a servant to them. And again, listeners, you've got to watch their videos, because when you just see the authenticity of the interactions, whether it's Dave or Randy or just, someone on their staff, their team, interacting with a homeless person, giving them dignity. So what's one of your favorite stories that when you've interacted with your constituents here, not your consumers, but your recipients, what's your favorite story?
One of my favorite stories is in, I think, year 4, we did an event called 60K Day. And the premise was that on any given night in New York City, over 60,000 people are experiencing homelessness. And so we wanted to kind of get this message out, and we brought together 60 brands from PayPal and Gap, to some of our other direct-to-consumer friends like Birchbox and Glossier and, Harry's and Warby. And we wanted to give each of the 60 companies 1,000 pairs of socks and send them out to one of 60 shelters in New York to deliver those socks, so that we were giving 60,000 pairs to the 60,000 people experiencing homelessness on that night. It's just a way to kind of draw attention to, this issue that was happening in our own backyard, one of the wealthiest cities in the world. And Randy was interacting. Shake Shack was one of our partners there. And they had so graciously donated the food for the event, hamburgers, hot dogs, and hot chocolate. And Randy ended up interacting with one of the people working at Shake Shack, who was pouring hot chocolate, and he came over and he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, a year ago I was homeless in Madison Square Park and feeling really bad about myself. And someone came over and handed me a pair of Bombas socks and, a little bit of money. And, on the back of the packaging that we have, it's a message to the homeless community that, hey, we hear you, we see you, we want you to feel dignified." And he said he thought a lot about that there was this company and people out there that cared about him, or thought about him. And it kind of was a motivating moment for him to, get his life back together. And a year later, he was working at Shake Shack, which, for those that don't know, is based in Madison Square Park and one of their original location. And so that moment always reminds me that, this item that we think is just maybe a small act of kindness, or maybe provides someone a little bit of comfort, in their day, can actually have a much larger impact.
That's a beautiful story. You have created this amazing infrastructure to deliver the socks and to support just this incredible consortium of giving partners. So talk about the giving network, because 3,500 partners is extraordinary.
As I said before, it kind of started with this one partner that we had in Cleveland, Ohio. And, I think what was somewhat unique about our business model that was different than a Tom's or different than a Warby, is that we were focused on the communities in our own backyards, right? So Tom's originally started by sending shoes to Argentina, and then they delivered shoes to a lot of third world countries where kids, don't have access to footwear. Warby, again, similarly, through the Vision Network, was working with third world countries that don't have access to, traditional eye care. For us, we thought it was important to, donate and connect with the communities that were in our own backyards. The same way that we kind of originated the idea with me handing out socks in New York City. Over the years, we said homelessness doesn't just exist in New York or San Francisco or LA, right? It exists in every single community. I had the privilege of growing up, in an upper middle class town in Westchester County, and even there, at the local church, there's a soup kitchen, right, for people who don't necessarily have the means by which to afford a meal. And so I'm always reminded by the idea that homelessness exists everywhere, or people who are on the brink of homelessness. And so we kind of cast a broader net to save those in need. And so as we grew as an organization, and as we had customers in California and customers in Massachusetts and customers in Alaska, and as our customer network, represented the U.S. population, we thought that our non-paying customers should represent, the same places where our customers are purchasing. And so it led us to this idea of creating a giving network. We thought it was important to have connection with all of the communities that we were selling our products into. We thought it would be important to have connections with those communities where we were donating product as well. And so over the years, we built out a network of over 3,500 giving partners that are mostly made up of homeless shelters or organizations that really focus on the poorest population in our country, to help them get services or items in need. And not surprisingly, universally, socks continues to be the number one most requested clothing item that they put in a request for. And so where this actually all kind of really started from is, as we started to get more broad stream media attention, we were on the Today Show, we were on Shark Tank, we were on Good Morning America. We had people reaching out and saying, hey, I run a shelter in Alaska. How can I get some of those donation socks? And so we started building out a form and a team internally just to service this part of the business. And so we've got this amazing giving team internally that liaises with all 3,500 partners. And they're all different.
You treated it not as a bolt-on or an afterthought, or this is somebody's job after five. You treated it as core to the essence of what Bombas was. And one of the things in one of your videos you talk about is you determined the real-time needs of giving partners before you just sent them product. And then you asked them, when do you need it? It was great customer relations. And I think that that's such a strong insight for anyone who's going to take either at the center of their business, their purpose, or that wants to be a key part of it. So that's brilliant.
I think it's a great parallel, actually, because, I think to really crystallize that thought for the listeners is, if you opened up an account with Nordstrom's, right? You wouldn't just start sending them product, right? They'd say, we can take this product. We'd take the spring product in spring. We'll take the winter product in winter. We can take this amount at this time for this store. And, you'd work with them, right? Because they're a client. And so that customer lens mentality that we apply to the giving side of our business reminds us to treat our giving partners like clients, because ultimately they're serving customers, on the non-paying side of our business.
That's brilliant. And I also love the fact that you were expanding the scale and the impact of this little pair of socks. And so that you have, in terms of your local giving network, you focus on veterans, youth, families. You address food insecurity, special support for LGBTQIA. You provide the groups that provide educational services, coordinating foster care. I mean, this is the pebble in the pond, but those ripples are just profound. So on that, I want to ask this follow-on question, because you have two children here that you love equally. You have great socks, and now you have T-shirts and underwear. You have a great commitment to a cause. And I love on your website that you actually have Q&A and resources to talk about homelessness, because it's not an easy issue. Does one of these parts of you have primacy over the other?
Never, never.
Okay.
We always said that, from the moment we launched our Indiegogo campaign, right, the two pillars of the business are the mission and the product. And because the mission is dependent on the product, it they can never be separated, right? Because the more we sell, the more we donate. And the more we donate, we feel like that helps push the brand forward to encourage customers to come back and feel good about their purchases. And, we close the loop for them, as you were saying. I mean, we most recently just launched this thing called the Impact Report. And for the longest time, we wanted to find ways to harvest the data amongst the 3,500 giving partners we have to truly understand the broad and local impacts that we were having, in these communities. And so rather than just put together some, PDF white paper and send it out, we built this microsite that, is animated and has interactions to, try to encourage, our customers to understand this is, the impact that you are having in your purchases is real.
I want to give some of those numbers because in your impact report, 61% of giving partners say that working with Bombas has increased community impact. I love the 99% of your giving partners say that working with you has allowed them to increase their overall 99% overall impact in the community. That's that pebble in the pond that is so profound. So incredible kudos to you. Can you talk a little bit about the Black Hive and the Rainbow Hive? Because these are new collections. And again, you're extending, you're staying to the core, but then you extend just a bit with great wisdom.
What's interesting about being an impact-driven company is, and one of the things that we learned early on was you can easily fall into the trap of wanting to do everything, right? Like if you have good intent, you say, well, of course, I want to cure cancer. I want to, solve climate change, all the kind of big ones. And so early on, we found ourselves, we made pink socks in October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And then we just found ourselves kind of chasing all of these impacts to try to be everything to everybody. And when our employee research group around the LGBTQ plus IA community came together and they said, hey, we'd like to do something for Pride. And so at first we were going back to the Breast Cancer Awareness Month socks. And we're like, look, our mission is homelessness. We've got to stay true and focus on kind of that root cause. And with a little bit of research from that group, what we quickly realized is that homelessness has a disproportionate impact on the LGBTQ plus IA community, specifically teens. So over 40% of teenagers who identify as LGBTQ plus IA have experienced homelessness, right? Because they're pushed out of their homes, they're not accepted in their communities. And so that was a key tie-in for us to say, oh, we should be doing something to bring awareness to the LGBTQ plus IA community, but we do it through the lens of homelessness, right? We bring it back to our root cause. And then the same thing with the Black Hive is our employee research group internally that represents as Black. We said, obviously, with the uprise of last year, we wanted to do something in the community. And so we said again, okay, how do we tie this back? We need to do something because the issue is so important, but how do we tie this back? And similarly, we found a staggering fact that while the Black population is about 13% of US population, it represents over 45% of the homeless population is Black, right? So a disproportionate, again, bias towards that community. And so we invited all of the Black creators in our organization to create a collection of socks that they were then the models for the advertisements in, to bring, again, awareness. And all of the proceeds, the sock proceeds, were donated to specific giving partners that served Black communities. And same thing with the LGBTQ plus IA Pride campaigns. Those go to serve organizations that focus on those groups.
So how did you have the discipline not to chase everything? Where did that come from? Babson? Did it come from your gut instinct? Where you have to be disciplined.
You do, and it goes to the broader base, I think, of what, in talking with a lot of other successful entrepreneurs and mentors that have kind of built bigger businesses, I think the pretty common thread that all of them landed on at some point was focus, right? And focus is the key. It's kind of like a marketing 101, ideal, right? Which is, you can't tell 100 stories to the customer, right? So tell one story and tell it really well, so much so that the customer can then repeat that story. And so what we found over, the time, and both anecdotally of me just being around friends and, meeting customers, and they'd say, right, you're the brand that says socks are the number one most requested clothing item, so you donate a pair for every pair. That's the one idea that I want every customer to know about. And I want them to just have that ingrained in their head. And so when we started getting pulled towards wanting to do other things, we said, no, we have to stick to telling the one story that we know how to tell.
The one story that we know how to tell. So my comment that focus is your friend, brilliantly executed by Bombas.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A question about the buy one, give one model. Tom's has steered off of that, and there have been many that have tried, and it kind of got into the washing of that model. Is that model dead? I mean, obviously not for you, but, as there's a young entrepreneur, older entrepreneur sitting there listening to this, and they go, maybe I could do it with XYZ. Is there still an option to do that?
There is, but it's not for every category. I think what was so unique about the problem that we were solving is that homelessness is not static, right? So 90% of the people who experience homelessness are what are called transitional homelessness. It means that in any given 12 months, they will go in or out of homelessness. Now, 10% are chronic homeless. Those are people who will experience homelessness beyond 12 months. And so it's a population that's a revolving door, right? So people are constantly coming in and out of homelessness. So the need for this product, and also since it's a wear-through item, is ever present. And so we are kind of fulfilling this leaky bucket, as it were, right? We're just putting more water, and then it's going out the other side. Whereas I think with Tom's, what they found, they were the pioneers of this. So, they had to learn a lot of lessons along the way, is that their impact in these local communities, well, shoes, last a lot longer than something like a pair of socks. And they found that in some communities they were going into, they were actually having a negative impact where they were, the local artisans who were making shoes, even at a limited supply, would be pushed out of business. What I'd also say is, the proliferation of, social entrepreneurship or, business for good over the last 10 years that we've been running has found its way to show up in a lot of different ways. In some, it's let's donate a percentage of our sales to an organization that has an impact on the climate or, whatever community. Some, they've found unique ways to recycle products. And so social entrepreneurship has evolved over the time, and I think for the better, right? Because there is not a one size fits all model, right? And so I think what's really important, I use the most extreme example. You couldn't start a car company and say, we're going to buy one and give one. The margin is like 5% on cars, right? It's
right.
super low.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas our product has a very high margin, and you get massive economies of scale by producing our donation product in the tens of millions, which we're producing every single year. That brings the cost of that product down, even though it's at the same quality of the product that we're selling. So, don't rush to think that, any one model, just because we did it and we're successful, it means you should apply it to whatever you want to do. Figure out, again, go through the customer lens project, figure out what makes sense the most to the consumer that you, or the community you want to have an impact in, and then back into that model into your business. And you have to make sure fiscally it works, right? Like, before we even started, we said, okay, what's the cost of the sock? What's the cost of the donation sock? We need to then sell it for, why? Because, we have to cover the cost of this additional margin. So it's not dead, but again, it's not universal where it works with everything.
So let's turn a little bit to the future and the 10th. So I know you do not want to, take the entire cover off of what you're going to do, but can you tease us a little bit about what's going to happen? And because everything you do is just good. It's fun. It's important. It's caring. I call it delicious. I love your brand and I love what you do, but what are you going to do for the 10th?
So 10 years will be next August for us. I can't speak too much because I think my PR team would kill me. But we're going to do something big. It's going to celebrate not only a year milestone. It's going to, I think, pretty perfectly line up with a big donation milestone. So,
nice. Okay.
Certainly more to come.
I bet I know that donation milestone, and it might have like 100 and something in it or something like that. But okay, all right. So we won't pull the cover off of that. I'm curious about. You've been doing this journey for almost 10 years. What is the most unusual thing that's happened with the notoriety that you've gotten?
I'm happy to say that I don't have any personal notoriety. I think very intentionally, me and the other co-founders, we decided early on that we wanted Bombas to be the focus, right? Not us as entrepreneurs. I don't think this world needs to celebrate any more white men personally. So we wanted to keep the focus on the brand, on the impact, on the product. And so I think from the brand's notoriety, one of the things that has brought me a ton of joy, on the mission side, I think, to date, we've donated over 75 million items, and the stories that we hear back from our giving partners, I alluded to one before where, a giving partner was able to send kids to college as a result of not having to buy socks. And it's just one story, again, of 3,500 giving partners times 75 million items. I can't even wrap my head around the individual impact that we have had. But that brings me obviously a tremendous amount of pride and joy. I think the other side is, we've done things the right way. We've done things at scale. I think different than a lot of our other, direct to consumer peers, we didn't raise a lot of money. We raised $1 million of seed funding, after we'd done about $1 million of revenue. We'd raised $3 million after we'd done close to $15 million. And that was the last money we brought in. So we built our entire business, which is now over $300 million in annual revenue, on $4 million of capital raised.
That's outrageous.
While being able to have the impact that we've had in our community. And what is on the brand side or the business side, what has brought me a ton of joy is hearing from the next generation of entrepreneurs. And I've already seen a bunch of brands start that say, I want to do things the way Bombas did it. I don't want to raise a lot of money. I want to have a lot of impact in my community. I want to treat our employees right. I think for the 5th year in a row, we've been named Fortune's #1 best place to work in retail. So looking back on what we've done, I know I can go to sleep at night and say, we did it the right way, right? We didn't compromise the product. We didn't compromise the mission. We didn't compromise our culture. We didn't compromise our customers.
Your head's screwed on right. Your heart's screwed on right. It's just wonderful to see. I hate to end this because this is a wonderful conversation. And I just think that more and more and more and more people need to know the entire holistic way that you've put this business together, because it's very business oriented and it's very, very thoughtful. So is there anything else that we haven't covered? Is there an insight that you say, you've given a lot of insights, but just one or two things that you'd like to leave with before we have to say goodbye?
The best advice I could give to, anybody, wanting to, start a impact driven company is find your superpower. And this is, speaks to both how you run your organization internally from a product standpoint, but also the mission side. And so we had gotten to a point, I think it was like year 4 or 5, we've donated 30 million pairs. And it was a number that like our brains couldn't even comprehend, right? We couldn't wrap our heads around it, but we've known that we've gone from, 0 to 1 million to 5 million, 10 million. Now we're doing 30 million. And we're like, wow, this thing is unstoppable. And the team, they started asking the question like, okay, well, what more could we be doing, right? We've kind of like done this sock donation thing. And we asked a lot of questions around, okay, should we go to Capitol Hill and create activism for homelessness? Should we open up our own homeless shelters? Should we address climate change? Because climate change is going to have an impact on homelessness, right? We kind of ran this very broad, almost impact brainstorming. And ultimately, what we came back to was the realization that we are really good at selling and donating socks, right? And it is a need that we have not yet fulfilled, right? We have an opportunity to then create underwear, which is the second most requested clothing item at homeless shelters, t-shirts, which is the third most requested clothing item at homeless shelters. The items that we all wear closest to our body every single day are the items that people in the homeless community, need to, rotate as much as possible, for hygiene purposes. So that entire exercise of saying, should we do climate change or homeless shelters or impact or whatever these, lobbying, got us back to realizing, no, what we are good at is donating, is selling and donating socks, tees, and underwear. And that's how we continue to create our impact. And so, it's this idea of focus, right, that I've been talking about a lot throughout this podcast. It's come back to the thing that you are good at and just be really, really, really good at that thing.
That's really, really super. So, Dave, Heath, I know that we always do something for holiday for our clients, and we always like to donate to a worthy cause. But I can see what we're going to buy, and that's so easy. And of course, every time I put my Bombas socks on, I'm just going to think of this incredible conversation, but the impact that I am having, because I really feel that based on what you've created. I wrote down this little line, and I hope I haven't stolen it from you, but it's the love that socks made. I mean, you're providing love and visibility and taking about the invisibility of the homeless community. And you're doing it in such a concerted and focused manner. So thank you for coming on the show. What I will offer to you is that please come back next year on your 10th, and we can do a little bit of like, wow, that was an amazing idea. If that's okay, would you come back?
Awesome.
And say hi to Randy and your entire community. And thank you so much. This has just been a wonderful, heartfelt, and so strategic conversation. Thank you, Dave Heath.
Thank you, Carol.
This podcast was brought to you by some amazing people, and I'd love to thank them. Ann Hundertmark and Kristen Kenny at Carol Cone on Purpose, Pete Wright and Andy Nelson, our crack production team at True Story FM, and you, our listener. We love hearing from you, so please give us feedback. Let us know names of people you'd like to hear on a future episode. How about some new questions to ask? And also, please rate and rank us, because we really want to be as high as possible as one of the top business podcasts available, so that we can continue exploring together the importance and the activation of authentic purpose. We all know every company, every brand, every not-for-profit must define their purpose, refine it, and activate it and evolve it over time so it has the greatest impact on business, growth, and society. And by listening to these episodes and sharing them with your colleagues and talking about them, I want to inspire you to have an amazing answer to this question: what is the power of your purpose? Thanks so much for listening.